Trump did a press conference. He held a press conference, I think it was last week. Yes, it was last week, about the coronavirus. And some of the things he said, I think, were very helpful. That, hey, we're doing absolutely everything that we can. We have blocked travel from places that we needed to block travel from, although there are still planes coming in from places that are highly infected with coronavirus. And so I would really like to see that change. But he was very sure, very confident. But there were some other things that he said that kind of seemed to undermine the CDC, that kind of seemed to undermine the experts. And he does seem to be, or he did at least last week, downplaying the pandemic a little bit too much, to the point to where his political enemies are saying that he doesn't really care about it, that he's not really serious about it. But I don't think that's true at all. I think that the point that he is trying to make is that the liberal media and some people on the left and some Democratic politicians are not blowing this out of proportion, because I do think it's a big deal at this point, but blowing certain things out of proportion to make President Trump look bad. So to make it seem like he is some circus clown that's just running around and, juggling on his unicycle and not really paying attention to the things that are happening. And that's just not an accurate depiction of how this administration has handled this virus, at least not so far. The headlines that you are going to see is that President Trump proposed cuts at one point to the CDC. But they didn't actually cut funds to the CDC. Actually, funds to the CDC, public funds to the CDC, taxpayer dollars, have increased while President Trump has been in office. And yet the headlines are, he proposed budget cuts, and that's what's making this worse. Well, that doesn't make any sense. The cuts didn't actually go through. And even if they had gone through, contrary to popular liberal belief, decreasing the budget for something doesn't necessarily decrease its effectiveness. This is a conservative administration. Of course, they're going to look to see where they can deregulate, where they can cut back on spending, because that is a tenet of conservatism. And because a lot of these programs, a lot of these organizations that are funded by taxpayer dollars are given too much money, and it ends up being wasteful. I'm not saying that's true about the CDC. I'm just saying in general. So even if they had gone through with these budget cuts to the CDC, which, there are a lot of places that we can cut in our budget. I'm fine with continuing to fund the CDC exactly how we do right now. But even if they had, that doesn't necessarily mean that the CDC would have been less effective. So, but the headlines are saying that President Trump and his administration proposed these budget cuts. He doesn't really care. He's not directing enough resources to it. And they're saying, oh, Mike Pence is heading up this effort against this pandemic. We're all going to die because Mike Pence is so incompetent. Well, Mike Pence is not incompetent, first of all. And he is a perfectly appropriate person to be heading this effort. He is not pretending, as far as I know, to be an expert on viruses, an expert on pandemics. He has tapped a lot of people who are the foremost experts in the world on pandemics to lead this effort. And yet the left, because they are so upset still that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton, because they hate Donald Trump so much, because they are so fully immersed in Trump derangement syndrome, that they are spinning this into a fully politicized thing when it really shouldn't. But because they've spun it into a politicized thing, people on the right have to react, and then it becomes political on both sides. And I do have to react and respond to some of their accusations, even though I don't want to make this a political thing, because you can't let them get away with a lie and have people believe that President Trump is somehow causing this pandemic.